Matt Roloff always said he was building the farm for his children. For decades, we watched him stand in front of the cameras, looking out over the pumpkin patches and the castle, swearing that every ounce of sweat and every dollar spent was to secure a legacy for Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob. We believed him. The world believed him. But behind closed doors, while the cameras were off and the lights were dimmed in the big house, a sinister plot was allegedly unfolding that would shatter that promise forever. We are talking about a betrayal so calculated and so quiet that no one saw it coming until the ink was already dry. The farm sale was just a distraction. The real heist wasn't about the land. It was about the liquid cash, the safety net, the one guarantee the Roloff boys had. Today, we are exposing the secret multi-million-dollar life insurance scandal and investigating the explosive theory that Caryn Chandler methodically erased Zach and Jeremy's names from their father's legacy, leaving them with absolutely nothing. This is the story of the beneficiary betrayal. Before we dive into these insider reports and open up the financial dossier that has torn this family apart, I need you to hit that like button right now. If you believe Zach and Jeremy deserve the truth, show your support by liking this video. And if you want to stay ahead of the Roloff news that the tabloids are too scared to print, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We are the only ones digging this deep, and you do not want to miss what we uncover next. To understand the magnitude of this betrayal, we have to go back to the very foundation of Roloff Farms. We have to strip away the reality show drama and look at the raw economics of what Matt and Amy built. For over 30 years, that property was more than just a tourist attraction. It was a bank vault. But land is complicated. Land is taxed. Land causes fights. Matt, being the strategic mastermind he claims to be, knew this. According to long-standing theories and financial speculations surrounding high net worth estate planning, Matt Roloff didn't just rely on the dirt to take care of his kids. He had a fail-safe, a massive multi-million-dollar life insurance policy. This policy was the silent partner in the Roloff empire. It was designed to be the ultimate equalizer. If the farm had to be sold to pay debts, the insurance money would go to the boys. If one kid got the house, the insurance money would pay out the others. It was the document that let Zach and Jeremy sleep at night, knowing that no matter how erratic their father became, their birthright was protected by a contract that not even Matt could mess up. Or so they thought. Think about the early seasons. Think about the broken bones, the surgeries, the uncertainty of their physical futures. Matt always projected the image of the provider. He sold the narrative that he was accumulating wealth to ensure his children, specifically the boys who shared his physical challenges and worked the land alongside him, would never have to worry about financial ruin. That life insurance policy was the lock on the gate. It was untouchable. It was the old Matt, the Matt who put family above fame. But as the years went on and as the marriage to Amy disintegrated, the atmosphere on the farm shifted. A new player entered the game, and she wasn't interested in maintaining the status quo. We watched Caryn transition from a farm manager to a personal assistant, and finally to the woman standing at Matt's right hand. What we didn't see, and what insiders are now suggesting, is that as Caryn's influence over Matt grew, her access to his private financial life deepened. This wasn't just about redecorating the double wide or planning trips to Arizona. This was about access to the filing cabinets, the passwords, and the estate attorneys. The setup for this tragedy revolves around trust. Zach and Jeremy trusted their father to be the patriarch. They trusted that even if they argued about pumpkin prices or property lines, the core documents of their inheritance remained sacred. They believed that the beneficiary designations on that massive policy were written in stone, signed years ago when the family was whole. They had no reason to suspect that a review of the estate was happening in secret. They had no reason to believe that late-night meetings in Matt's office weren't about farm logistics, but about rewriting the future. The tragedy of the setup is that the boys were distracted. They were distracted by the public feud over the north side of the farm. They were fighting for a piece of land, completely unaware that the real war was being won by Caryn on a piece of paper they couldn't see. While Zach was negotiating for the big house and Jeremy was looking for his own homestead, the safety net was allegedly being cut out from under them. We have to look at the psychology of Matt Roloff during this period. He felt unappreciated. He felt like his kids were entitled. And who was there to whisper in his ear? Who was there to validate his feelings of victimhood? The narrative being spun suggests that Caryn didn't just happen to be there. She positioned herself as the only one who truly cared for Matt, creating an environment where the children were viewed as liabilities rather than heirs. This context is crucial because it explains how a father could be convinced to do the unthinkable. It wasn't an overnight decision. It was a slow erosion of loyalty. The setup forces us to ask a terrifying question. Was the farm negotiation actually a smokescreen? Was the chaos regarding the sale of the property just a loud distraction to keep everyone looking at the left hand, while the right hand was signing away the insurance millions? If these theories hold water, it means that for the last few years, every time Matt looked Zach in the eye and talked about fairness, he was holding a secret that would eventually destroy their relationship. The farm was the visible legacy, but the insurance was the hidden fortune. And as we prepare to look at how the switch happened, remember this. In the world of high-stakes estate planning, the beneficiary form overrides the will. It overrides the trust. It overrides everything. Whoever's name is on that line gets the money, tax-free, instantly, and no judge can easily overturn it. It is the most powerful weapon in a financial arsenal, and it was about to be aimed directly at the Roloff children. We have arrived at the twist, the moment where the narrative shifts from a family dispute to something far more calculated and devastating. This is the beneficiary betrayal. To understand how Caryn allegedly pulled this off, we have to look at the mechanics of influence. It wasn't a sudden hostile takeover. It was a slow, methodical creep into the administrative heart of the Roloff estate. Sources close to the situation have long speculated that Caryn's power didn't come from the farm operations, but from the office. That cramped, chaotic room where Matt kept his schemes and his spreadsheets was the nerve center of the empire. And for years, it was a mess. Matt is a visionary, not a filer. He is a dreamer, not an organizer. Enter Caryn. She didn't just organize the files, she curated them. She didn't just schedule the meetings, she controlled who got in the room. This is where the stealthy manipulation began. The theory we are investigating suggests a timeline that perfectly aligns with the breakdown of the farm negotiations. Remember the tension? Remember Zach walking away from the table, feeling disrespected? Remember Jeremy deciding to buy a different property entirely? While we were focused on their anger, we missed Matt's vulnerability. Matt felt abandoned. He felt like the victim of his own generosity. And right there, in the heat of that emotional winter, the door to the safe was left open. Insiders speculate that Caryn used this specific window of time, when Matt was most hurt by his son's rejection of his farm offer, to bring up a topic of the future. The conversation likely wasn't framed as cutting the kids out. That would be too aggressive. That would raise alarms. No, the manipulation works by framing the betrayal as protection. Imagine the scene inside the big house. It's late. The rain is hammering against the windows in Oregon. Matt is stressed, looking at the mounting legal fees and the stalling negotiations. The narrative suggests that Caryn proposed a simplification of his assets. The pitch was likely smooth and logical. She might have argued that having the boys named as direct beneficiaries on the life insurance policy was messy, especially since they were technically enemies in the current business negotiation. She could have whispered that if something happened to Matt right then, the boys would get millions of dollars instantly, money that would give them the power to buy the farm out from under the estate, or worse, money they didn't deserve because they weren't willing to work for it. It was a poison pill wrapped in logic. The suggestion was to remove the complexity, to remove the direct access, and to place the control into the hands of someone who truly understood Matt's vision, someone who wouldn't use the money to fight against the legacy, someone like her.
This is the step-by-step process of the heist. First, you isolate the target. Caryn had effectively created a buffer zone between Matt and his family,
The Sunday dinners had stopped. The casual drop-ins were non-existent. Matt was in an echo chamber where the only voice he heard was hers. Second, you manufacture urgency. The constant refrain that the boys were ungrateful or greedy created a false emergency in Matt's mind. He began to view his own children as threats to his estate rather than the heirs to it. Third, you present the document. Changing a life insurance beneficiary is terrifyingly easy. It doesn't require a notary in many cases. It doesn't require a family meeting. It doesn't require a lawyer to read it out loud to the potential heirs. It is a single form, a few strokes of a pen, a signature, and it is done in total secrecy. We have to talk about the document itself. In the world of finance, this is the change of beneficiary form. It is the silent killer of inheritances. When Matt Roloff sat down at that desk, allegedly with Caryn hovering over his shoulder, guiding his hand to the signature line, he was making a decision that superseded everything else. He could have a will that says, "I love my children." He could have a trust that outlines a distribution plan. But if that insurance policy says, Caryn Chandler, the insurance company does not care about the will. They write the check to Caryn, period. End of story. The theory posits that Caryn knew this loophole better than anyone. She knew that the farm was a tangled mess of assets and debts that would take years to settle in probate court. But life insurance? That is liquid gold. That is instant cash. By targeting the policy, she was bypassing the fight for the land and going straight for the vault. The twist deepens when we consider the scope of the erasure. We aren't just talking about Zach and Jeremy. If these exclusive theories are correct, the pen stroke that day didn't just cross out the twins. It allegedly removed Molly and Jacob as well. It was a clean sweep. The justification? Likely that Caryn would act as the steward of the money. Matt may have convinced himself, or been convinced, that leaving the money to Caryn was the responsible thing to do. The lie he told himself was probably that Caryn would take care of the kids if they behaved. This turned their birthright into an allowance that Caryn could dole out or withhold based on her own discretion. It transferred the power from the Roloff bloodline to the Chandler bank account. It was the ultimate power move. It turned the children from heirs into beggars who would have to plead with their father's girlfriend for a piece of the pie that was promised to them since birth. Let's dig into the psychology of the single name. Why replace 4 children with 1 girlfriend? It speaks to the level of control Caryn had achieved. To convince a man who built his entire public persona around family first to completely disinherit his offspring on the most valuable liquid asset he owns requires a masterclass in manipulation. We believe she played on his fear of the farm failing. She likely painted a picture where the kids would take the insurance money and run, leaving the farm to rot. By naming herself, she aligned herself with the farm. She became a farmer. "Trust me, Matt," she likely said. "I'm the only one who will use this money to save the land." It was a lie, of course. Insurance money is personal property. Once it hits her account, she can spend it on cruises, condos in Arizona, or a new life entirely. There is no legal obligation for a beneficiary to spend the money on the deceased's wishes. Matt Roloff, a man who prides himself on business acumen, allegedly fell for the oldest trick in the book because his ego was bruised and his guard was down. The betrayal was stealthy because it was silent. There was no announcement. There was no family meeting to discuss the restructuring of the estate. The papers were signed, folded, and filed away in a drawer that Zach and Jeremy had no keys to. Life went on. The show went on. Matt smiled at the cameras. Caryn smiled at the kids at birthday parties, holding the secret that she was now worth millions more than them in the eyes of the insurance company. This silence is the most chilling part of the twist. It means that for months, maybe years, every interaction between the boys and Caryn was a farce. Every time she asked about the grandkids, every time she offered advice, she was sitting on a winning lottery ticket that was stolen from their pockets. She watched them struggle to buy homes. She watched them stress about money, all while knowing that the safety net their father promised was gone.
This wasn't just a financial transaction. It was an emotional erasure. By removing their names, Matt was symbolically removing them from his life. He was stating, legally and financially, that Caryn was more important to his future and his legacy than the children he raised. And Caryn? She didn't stop him. She didn't say, "Matt, this isn't right. These are your kids." According to the theories we are exploring, she handed him the pen. She printed the form. She licked the envelope. She was the architect of the erasure. She exploited the fractured relationship between a stubborn father and his independent sons to secure a payday that is absolutely staggering. The beneficiary betrayal wasn't an accident. It wasn't an oversight. It was a heist executed in broad daylight, behind the closed doors of an office that used to be open to everyone. And as the ink dried, the clock started ticking toward the inevitable explosion when the truth would finally come out. The clock eventually ran out on the secrets. Secrets of this magnitude have a way of surfacing, usually at the worst possible moment. And for the Roloff family, that moment arrived during the catastrophic breakdown of the farm negotiations. This brings us to the climax of our investigation, the devastating discovery. According to reports leaking from the inner circle, the truth didn't come out at a dinner table or a therapy session. It came out in a stack of paperwork. When Zach and Jeremy were seriously considering buying the farm, they entered a phase of due diligence. This involves lawyers, accountants, and a deep dive into the estate's liabilities and assets to understand succession. It was during this review, when the boys were looking for the safety net that had been promised to them since they were children, that they allegedly found the hole in the net. Imagine the scene. Jeremy and Zach, perhaps sitting with a financial advisor, flipping through the updated estate overview. They were likely looking for the confirmation of the insurance policy, the document that guaranteed the non-purchasing siblings would be paid out and that the farm's debt wouldn't crush the new owner. They expected to see their names. They expected to see a split. Instead, they stared at a page that had been sanitized of the Roloff legacy. The theory is that they saw the updated beneficiary designation, and the name staring back at them wasn't theirs. It wasn't their wives. It wasn't even the grandkids. It was Caryn Chandler. The silence in that room must have been deafening. The heartbreak wasn't just about the money. It wasn't about greed. It was the realization that their father had sat across from them for months, haggling over the price of the land, knowing full well he had already stripped them of their ultimate protection. He was trying to sell them a farm at a premium price while secretly holding the insurance payout for his girlfriend. This is the moment the dam broke. This is the moment the relationship allegedly shifted from strained to obliterated. We have heard rumors of an explosive confrontation, a moment where the polite cameras-on veneer was ripped away. Jeremy, who has spent years trying to be the diplomatic older brother, reportedly couldn't hold back. The question he asked Matt wasn't about the pumpkin season or the zoning laws. It was a question that cut to the core of their existence as a family. He looked at the man who raised him and asked, "What do we do now?" It wasn't a question about the next step in the deal. It was a cry of despair. What do we do now that we know you chose her over us? What do we do now that the trust is so broken it can never be glued back together? Matt's reaction, as described by insiders, was classic deflection. He likely retreated into his victimhood, claiming that it was his money to do with as he pleased, and that Caryn was the only one looking out for his actual well-being, while the kids just wanted a handout. He didn't see it as a betrayal. He saw it as leverage. He saw the insurance policy as a tool to control the family dynamic, failing to realize that by using it as a weapon, he had just severed the last tie to his sons. This explains everything that followed. It explains why Zach packed up his family and moved to Battleground, Washington, putting a strict distance between his children and the farm. It explains why Jeremy and Audrey bought their own fixer-upper, completely detaching their dream from Matt's nightmare. They weren't just leaving a property deal. They were fleeing a financial trap where Caryn held the keys. The fallout is the point of no return. The relationship between Matt Roloff and his sons is officially dead. We see the awkward visits on the show, the forced smiles at the pumpkin patch, but the eyes don't lie. The warmth is gone. The legacy that Matt Roloff spent a lifetime building, the idea of a multi-generational family farm, has been sold out for a life insurance policy with his girlfriend's name on it. Caryn has won. She has the ear of the patriarch, she has the ring on her finger, and if these theories are correct, she has the signature on the multi-million-dollar payout. The boys have been erased from the financial future of the estate, left to build their own lives from scratch, while their father plays happy family with the woman who orchestrated their removal. This tragedy forces us to look at Matt Roloff in a harsh new light. Is he a victim of Caryn's masterclass in manipulation, a lonely man who was duped into signing away his children's birthright because he was desperate for affection? Or is he the villain of this story? Is he a narcissist who is fully responsible for letting this happen? A man who values control and loyalty to his new partner more than the blood in his veins? I need to know where you stand. Are you Team Matt, believing he owes his adult children nothing? Or are you Team Kids, believing that this was a theft of their legacy? Let me know whose side you are on in the comments below, because the battle lines are drawn and the family is shattered. But don't click away yet, because the story doesn't end here. While Matt and Caryn were rewriting the documents in the dark, someone else was watching. Someone else knows where the bodies are buried and where the money is hidden. Amy Roloff has been quiet, but reports are surfacing that she has a secret counter move that could blow Caryn's plan wide open. We are investigating a forgotten clause in the divorce settlement that might just nullify Caryn's claim to the insurance fortune. You do not want to miss our next video where we expose Amy's revenge. Subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next deep dive.